dream, believe in strength. Now I'm the only one, only one. I was an ordinary boy until I broke the rules. My life destroyed, a life destroyed. Until I woke awake, scream my mind, I shout, the ground shakes. How much can I take? My mind will break. Will it break? Can I take? Can I be your super?
Hello there, everybody. Welcome back again to the Quacken Smite League Deep Sea Division. As you can see, we are absolutely flying through our routine today. We have the Food Fighters against the Pittsburgh Gold Diggers, hereby known as PGD, and it is Judas Priestley here, joined by Zats and Zats. I'm not going to give you a lot of time with this, but you see the picks in front of you. What is jumping out that you'd like to touch on before we head right on into this game?
Well, first of all, you have to say the Food Fighters, their draft looks very cohesive. They've got a great team fight. They've got lots of early pressure. Laning phase will be really, really strong for them. But they also transition quite well into the mid-game, into the late game, with that Athena ult, Morgan Le Fay and Hachi have lots of long-range poke in the late game. Really nicely well-rounded comp for them. PGD, I just like all of their picks. I think that Yu Huang is super strong at the moment. It's slightly lower down on the tier list if you look at all the roles they've got. You've got Thanatos, you've got Hercules, slightly lower prioritized, and that dual lane might be a bit of a concern for me. There's not very much pressure there at all. But interested to see how this plays out when we get into game. But off this very brief summary, I'm favouring the Food Fighters just that little bit.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? Just pulling away from tier list specifically. It's like A tier versus B tier here. Not the players, though, just the gods. So let's see how the players make it work as we head on over to game number 1 and see how this all shakes out. So everyone, doing things pretty simply right now. A few names that we recognize here, actually. Zats, which I'm going to be very excited to be casting over here. But like we said, with the simplicity of both compositions here, do you see either side really wanting to, or should I say, needing to get a foothold in the game early?
Well, I think it's going to be important for Pittsburgh Gold Diggers to get some pressure in the solo lane. That's mostly on Thanatos. Just giving a bit of breathing space to this Hercules. Oh, and there it is! You need it even more because it's first blood, and Honkler has gone down on this Hercules already. We're 40 seconds in, Judas.
The cringiest of cringe ganks didn't even go for the second speed buff. That is how the Food Fighters want to set the tone for this game, and you can't say it hasn't worked out for them. We have Ptolemy over here standing right on a perfectly placed, expertly placed ward, and unfortunately for them, no hint from the Food Fighters dual lane that they were aware of that situation, so that Thanatos does not get the early gank off, just waste some time, and a great start for the Food Fighters.
Yeah, just as I was saying, you need to give Hercules some help, some laning assistance, and it goes completely the other direction, which is actually really nice recognition from Gato on the Food Fighters. Just to, you've already got good pressure there. Cullen, obviously, this dominant lane bully, as you'd expect.
Yes.
And now it's just going to get a whole lot worse. Hercules isn't going to have the blue buff, has used the teleport, and if Hercules gets poked out again, then you're going to be sent back to base, and you'll find yourself really far behind, as does Zazith, in terms of health bar, but not quite falling to Demon at this early stage. But it's all action, Judas. We've hardly had time to breathe, and there's another gank.
To be expected, there's the gank onto the Cucullin, but uses that leap right in time. Does not get pulled back in by the Honkler, who just has to watch as the Hercules is certainly going to suffer for the next few moments. Ptolemy might suffer themselves. The bat comes in. Good damage coming out. It's a good pull, but it does not matter. Starry is acutely getting everything you need done, but hold on. You can't stand there in front of a Hercules. My goodness. 3 kills already, 2 minutes in.
I don't know what just happened. It was really nice work once again from Kamazox. Jumped in to secure that buff. and then lots and lots of damage from this point. And that's the problem with Thanatos, is lots of base damage, but you have to hit your skill shots, which is much the same for Camazotz. But the fact is, that was a really good engagement. It's like they weren't expecting it. But then Starry also wasn't expecting the push from Hercules. Griff is in big trouble. Surrounded by 3, dies in the enemy jungle. It's 2 for 2. There's not going to be much analysis time in this game, I think, Judas. You're going to have a long 20 minutes ahead.
Oh, I'm going to have a fun 20 minutes ahead by the sounds of it. It looked like there, Griff gets caught being a little bit confident. Easy to do on a Camazotz, especially when you get off to a good start. And, in a decent matchup, right, into the Thanatos directly. But no level 5 means you can be collapsed on, especially without that jump. So great rotation from Demon there on the Hu Huang. Catches the Camazotz perfectly. And, yeah, it's, now pretty much close to even. We are a couple of gold difference, which is pretty much all in solo lane. It's been a fast-paced start, but not a whole lot to show for it just yet.
No, I am still concerned about this solo lane. Although one thing to note is I mentioned how this duo lane might get out pressured. They actually hit level 5 quite a bit in front of the food fighters, which surprised me. But what it means is Ptolemy is here for a gank once again. Decent damage.
Sight didn't actually connect there. Definitely would have been a
do
kill.
it.
Up into the sky. Does not catch the mounted archery, though. Oh, and Griff right on cue to punish Helnu, caught by the more hungers, but it does not matter. Ptolemy certainly dead. Helnu with the ult just to make absolutely certain. And there again goes the kill swing, this time to the food fighters.
They're just not stopping. I would call that possibly a little bit of over-aggression. I think in game number 1 of what could potentially be a 3-game set, I don't mind being that aggressive. Speaking of which, there's kills happening in left lane. Pressure on Demon, but Yu Huang stays in the air for a long time and juking a lot.
Juking a lot, but is the damage there? And the battle of the hell. Oh no! Oh, Griff goes the wrong way. Can they catch some? Oh, yes, they can. But now Ptolemy's on the scene. Does not connect with the silence. Trying to get the scythe off, but the scythe not on the mark again. And Griff sees an opportunity, turns it around, and scythes down Ptolemy. Thanatos having a rough time of it so far. We are 8 kills in, ladies and gentlemen. Just 5 minutes into this one.
Oh, there was already a 2-level advantage for Gator Griff, having tower dove and killed the Yu Huang. That's really crucial, by the way, to get your mid lane ahead, because Yu Huang is such a safe character, gets the beat, gets the kill, and then you've got a Thanatos that's 2 levels down on you and has just missed the death side, and that is key. At that point, Gator Griff can take that fight, and it's so easy to win that 1v1 trade. Really good proactive gameplay once again from the Food Fighters jungler. It's really good to see, and it's putting your lanes in a good position as well. Although it is worth mentioning, Killjoy also got a kill on the Charybdis in that duo lane side while that was happening in mid, and now we've got pressure on the bull.
Alright, it's actually a big brawl here. 4 men committed by the Pittsburgh Gold Diggers here, but Starry's Acuity doing everything they want with this fight so far. Demon forced to use those dragons to get away. Nice push coming out from the Honkler, though. Helenu in big danger if they can get cut down, and yes, they do. Ptolemy now gives chase to Starry, who is not in execute range, does not get caught, and Griff is on the scene as well, leaping out the Ptolemy. This bat can do a lot right now. Starry picks up the kill. In response, Griff wants to give chase. Returning to the base was Demon, and that will be that. The Bull Demon still stays alive for a moment, and the Food Fighters gonna sweep it up.
The frightening thing about that fight for the Pittsburgh Gold Diggers was the fact that they were fighting with a 2-man advantage, and it was still proving really difficult to take down this Cullen, who's already finished that Shifter Shield. Lots of talk about that. We won't get a chance to talk about it this game, obviously, but it took them so long just to eventually kill Helanu on this Athena. And imagine if Food Fighters had been there 5 seconds earlier. That would have been devastating, a complete wipe, probably, because Cullen was doing so much work, and then Gator Griff does eventually join the fight, gets another kill onto Thanatos. That's 4 deaths already for this Thanatos, which is pretty alarming, you have to say. And then they get Bull Demon as well. This is the pressure that we're talking about, but the problem is when you draft a comp like this, at this level, we don't always see that pressure utilised. They are very much utilising all the pressure that they have, and then some. It's fantastic to watch.
Now, I do have a question for you, Zed. So, Thanatos, typically known as a early game god, if we have the time to talk about this, but obviously having a rough start means that early game is pretty much dead in the water. There's a bit of a brawl going on this duo lane right now, but no, it doesn't seem to be too much. So, what do you do now as Thanatos to come back from this? Do you wait till late game to use that execute, or do you still try and impact what little pressure you do still have?
I actually think you need to chill out a little bit. The fact is your lanes are doing okay. You know, just Solo need a little bit of help perhaps, but actually was doing perfectly fine despite an early fall. It's 2-1. The ult comes out. It's a brawl over the purple bar. No deaths yet, but health bar's getting lower.
Ooh, Food Fighters do manage to take that one. Tova, very low on this Hachiman, but playing it relatively safe. It's actually picked up a green buff, which I believe was invaded earlier. So almost telling us there that they don't plan to get too aggressive. They probably don't have the choice, given the way that this game has gone. But even picking up that green buff just for that little bit of extra defensive capability. And Ptolemy somewhat now playing defensive away from Griff, focusing on retreating whenever possible, which is probably the suggested thing to do. But it's up to Griff now on this Camazotz with this type of lead to try and make things happen. Demon forced into the beads, just Goomba stomp on Zardes, but has the ultimate ready up in those runes and whiffs everything. Does not connect, and Demon gets out alive. Did lose the beads though.
Yeah, it was a good engage. Probably slightly got a lot.
Well, this is close.
The Starry and both of them are a little bit scared. Yeah, it was an odd decision, Demon. I think to dunk straight back down. You have like such a long time to remain in the air using that Dragonflight. To come back down, you're not really doing any damage with it at this level, and in the end, you get sent back to base when you perhaps wouldn't have needed to. But yes, regardless, the beads were the most important thing to take from that fight. As we see a jumping from Void Pain, this Bacchus willing to ult. I really respect that. Thanatos is going deep to this and probably shouldn't.
Yeah, well, it's complicated there, because if that went into execute range, all of a sudden that's really sick from Void Pain. But it was definitely the right thing to do. What else are you going to really use that ultimate for in the coming moments, right? But if you can just pressure this Morgan Le Fay with no lifesteal in the kit, or in the build, I should say. And whoa, there we go, paying off in just a few moments after that. Demon picking up a kill in the mid lane, but hold on, Killjoy getting aggressive on this Charybdis, but has been caught and does not get the push. Griff will pick up the kill. Tova Mesa with a fantastic bait in the left lane.
And it's so easy to juke all the big damage with that Camazotz. Very fast, you can avoid so much with it, and you still do very good damage with it, and it also allows you to confirm your other two skill shots really nicely, because your point blank range, it's really nicely played so far from Gato. Yet more pressure in this solo lane. Yeah, I guess I'm still looking at this jungle matchup. You know, Ptolemy's only a level down, which, you know, given that one jungler is 1 and 4, the other is 4 and 1, you're not too unhappy about that. You are going to have to transition this build into a slightly later game focus. And to be fair, Thanatos actually does quite well in the late game. You know, that execute is always going to be relevant at all stages of the game. You know, it's good early, but it's actually arguably more useful in the late game. If you have the right focus from the rest of your teammates, you can actually take down a tank early in the fight, and then suddenly you're at a numbers advantage for that big team fight. That's actually what Thanatos is going to have to do come the late game. But you need to get there first, and you know, a level and a half down, 11 minutes in, you're doing the right thing now, not being quite as aggressive on those engagements, you know, not diving between tier 1 and tier 2 mid tower at 11 minutes is a good sign. You know, you're slowing the game down just that little bit, which is what you need to do, because otherwise the rest is going fine. We've had a few scrappy deaths elsewhere, but we've also got Demon who's picked up a kill in the mid lane, so you're pretty happy there. Duo lane, hard to call at this stage. It's a slight lead for the Food Fighters, but you're not unhappy with how Bacchus and how Charybdis are doing. So yeah, just take a chill pill. Don't worry too much, because actually the rest of it is kind of going to plan, and you're not so out of the game that you're irrelevant at this stage. So nothing to worry about just yet.
Yeah, gold lead, obviously slightly trending towards food fighters, but even objectives are somewhat being traded quite evenly. Like Bull Demon goes one way, then obviously we see the beacon then go the way of the Pittsburgh Gold Diggers instead. Zyle uses the ultimate there, does get the beads from the Bacchus, which is a little bit surprising, but maybe not super surprising with an Athena on the other side, but does lose it there relatively innocuously. And I do think we've had an absolute explosion of action at the start, and it slowed down somewhat for a time. But I think with Gold Fury being under threat, especially with Tova putting up this sort of pressure, I have the bladed boomerang online, by the way, Zets. I'll let you get to that when you get the chance, but definitely searching for an opportunity onto Dr. Killjoy. Might instead look at Void Pain, but this block is going to be pretty tanky at the moment. Fully completed Thebes, and yeah, nothing really doing for the food fighters just yet.
Which makes it all the more interesting that you've elected to go beads on this very, very tanky Bacchus. And I know there's a thing, but that is really it. And one thing I will say about getting beads on these tanky characters, supports, and some solos as well, it means you can be very liberal with those beads. You can use them for almost anything, and it actually allows you to be aggressive. But also, there's really not enough CC, and if you are getting there's a kill onto the mid lane. Zarzith falls once again. Ptolemy getting another kill onto the board, just as Pyromancer spawns.
Yeah, showing up, didn't use the ultimate there, probably a death scythe to the face, which Morgan Le Fay doesn't tend to appreciate, but this Pyromancer actually doing quite a lot to take down, and yeah, it looks like PGD will not be able to take it, but I think Food Fighters will probably pick this one up relatively safely. Void Pain is all here, but that's going to be too late. That's a pretty cheap objective for the Food Fighters to get, and honestly, you'd be quite happy with the trade overall. Trading out your mid laner for a Pyromancer pretty okay, so like I was saying, that's everything relatively even across the board still.
Yeah, I will say I am a little bit concerned about Zarzith that gone the double book build, which involves a lot of stacking, slow compared to Demon, who's built the Spear of Deso into the Divine Ruin, so lots of flat penetration power online already. It's a much earlier game build, which we normally see from a Yu Huang. He's a little more late game scaling, but I actually really like this here. The anti-heal is going to be very important for dealing with the Camazots especially. Morgan Le Fay has quite a lot of healing from her ultimate, which can catch people out if you're not expecting it. It's not something you always build anti-heal into, but it's actually very important, I think, for dealing with her late game. But at the moment, yeah, her build is not really online. It's just a lot of power, but you're going to struggle to kill tanks at this stage. It could well be a soul gem next, which is going to be a nice bit of cooldown reduction, but not really enough for me. It's going to be another 10-15 minutes before you feel particularly relevant, and that's partly because actually Zarzith has died a couple of times in mid, and that's not really helping your case when you have these kind of builds.
Yeah, when you are playing it so slow and you're waiting for that late game, which, as we've seen, that in the current meta since that 9.5 revert, late game is far from guaranteed. If anything, it happens less often than not. So I'd be a little bit surprised to see a team drafting around a composition that is intended to go so late. You even see a very late Soul Eater coming out from Griff there on the Camazots, which, again, good item, but you're building it quite late into the build, so you're expecting this game to go on for quite a bit longer. But, we've probably only got about 10 minutes left, and if you feel like you can get those stacks online quickly enough, then sure. And it has been relatively slow in terms of the map, all the towers still standing, so maybe this time we'll be there. But it is a little bit of a questionable decision, but this first tower will be going down in the mid lane. It does look like PGD want to take a bit of a fight, but Food Fighters good disengage, and they get right out of there.
Yeah, very clean disengage, actually, and that's important for getting to these early stages. Because we do see Hachiman is very high up, but it's a Hachiman got some crit online with the bladed boomerang, and the ults come out. Now, this is an all kind of scrap going on. I'm not sure anyone's really winning it at this stage, though. Just a skirmish and nothing more.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of ultimates dropped from everyone, and Helenu then gets plucked into danger and does go down. Starry, though, does a ton of damage to everyone in sight, but has got quite a lot of defense in their kit, and Ptolemy has to retreat. Griff actually has a good angle to come in here, and the Hongo is actually going to be in danger. This Hercules, despite the build, does not seem particularly tanky at the moment, especially with a backline firing like Demon does onto Starry, the Cucullin, who looked so strong, just deleted in an instant.
Yeah, not much in the way of magical defense online. Going in.
Oh!
Nice dueling dragons. Gets the beat from Zarzif, and that would have been the life as well had those beads not come out. Actually, really good reaction. I love seeing dueling dragons come out like that. It's a
Yeah.
The range on that ultimate is actually just really deceptively far, and it can catch a lot of people off guard. It's like a Hercules pull with double the range and double the damage. And what it'll do is open the door for this first Gold Fury to get.
Yeah, have now taken it, have Pittsburgh Gold Diggers. Helenu aware of the situation, but nothing this Athena could do about it. Nothing that anyone on the Food Fighters could really do about it. When you go for this style of composition, right, it does a lot of damage to, in particularly, front lines with the Morgan Le Fay and the Hachiman. But in terms of objective steal, you've got basically nothing in the kit. And even though Pittsburgh Gold Diggers don't have a particularly good secure themselves either, when you create that sort of space, it just allows you to take these objectives. And that has been the method that the Pittsburgh Gold Diggers have been going for. We saw with the Pyromancer earlier, just look for a window and go for it then. If they show up, don't contest it. So definitely expect to see a little bit more of that. But Zets, we are 18 minutes into this game, 7 kills to 8, and the gold is almost dead even. 400 or so in it. Oh, sorry, it's 1,400 or so in it, but so close still, especially at this stage.
Yeah, it's actually really nicely poised. It's weird in a way that this has favoured both teams in kind of getting them to the sort of mid-game to later stages. And it's hard to say if anyone's really benefited from this at this point. You know, it does feel really even. I will say that Pittsburgh Gold Diggers are going to have, I think, a better time killing frontline than you'd think. As Zarzif gets the Aegis forced out, more fighters.
Oh! Nice combination there. Ptolemy with the execute onto the Morgan Le Fay. Griff goes in with all their abilities, but doesn't have enough damage now. Pops the bat out of hell, waiting for the shell to disappear, and they will get the kill by the help of Helenu. Now, the Solar Laners have showed up to join in, but the fight's almost done with, but Saria Zacuti makes sure that it is in favor of the Food Fighters. The Honkler now, the next target in sight. Void Pain is here, but doesn't have anything ready to help Peel. Griff just charges them down. Void Pain jumps into danger. Killjoy is here, along with Tova Mesa, though, and that is still going to mean this fight just goes exceptionally well for Food Fighters. 4 kills for just the one.
4 for one swing, and that started with Zarzif getting caught on the back end. It was a lot of damage coming out from Iguan. Forced to use the Aegis, and then it's free for Ptolemy to dunk on and get the execute. 4 and 5. That Thanatos is certainly not slacking. Unfortunately, the rest of your team, it feels like they're a bit discordant in who they're going for. You know, Ptolemy and Demon are focusing on one target quite clearly, but I don't know what this Bacchus is doing at this stage. It's now 13, by the way. Was really even at one point with Helenu, and then the last few fights has just fallen so far behind. I think perhaps focusing less on farm and maybe focusing on scrapping a bit too much. That's a bit of a concern, actually, as Ptolemy gets feared out, lots of damage, another kill onto this Thanatos. 6 in that column now. I'm not sure there's anything they can do with it. It's a little bit early for Fire Giant. They'll go back to farming, but we've already got a level 20 Hachiman, a level 20 Kamazots, and I imagine Starry won't be far away as well. It still feels poised. Food Fighters have definitely taken a big step up, despite the pace of the game remaining practically identical to how it's been the first 20 minutes. But Griff is just happy to swarm into this jungle, try and invade stuff, and do a ton of damage to Killjoy.
Yeah, a ton of damage, but Killjoy fights back and does still have that Whirlpool form to get out of danger. Demon pops the Dueling Dragons a bit too early and does not connect with them, so now it is just the escape route for Food Fighters, but they didn't lose anyone, did PGD, so we'll be happy with that. And I think it's important for Killjoy to start to get involved, because this Charybdis has had a lot of space and hasn't really had the chance to impact these fights. Was not part of the 4-for-1 trade in favor of Food Fighters just now, so definitely on Killjoy here to make something happen, but I expect they can. You saw the damage that they just did onto Griff, and that's a 7-1 Kamazots that they just faced down with absolutely no fear. So when we're coming around this Fire Giant fight, it's going to be who can catch the first opportunity, but they're not going to be easy to come by. The Hunkler, though, takes a ton of damage from Tova Mesa. This Hatchman not to be outdone by their opposing number. Void Pain cannot lock them down and cannot even get the Intoxicate. All these carries right now firing out damage.
Man, I was going to say one crit item does have the upgraded starter as well, so technically 2, and the kin size online, lots of attack speed, a bit of life steal, 10 as well in that executioner. That build is, I think, doing a lot more than what Killjoy is doing. We're going to see more of it here. Ults used by the Hercules, health bars are dropping, beans popped by the Bacchus.
Total chaos absolutely everywhere in this narrow corridor. Ptolemy
Oi.
gets caught by Griffin, goes down. Nothing that Demon could do to keep them alive. So now, power play opportunity for Food Fighters. They are 5 versus 4. They will turn this into just a Stygian beacon for the time being, but the threat is still looming of a fire giant pull.
The problem is that Food Fighters are playing this game at such
Demon.
a pace. Goober
My
Stomps
goodness.
doesn't matter. The problem is, the Pittsburgh Gold Diggers, in a way, they have to kind of match the aggression that's coming out from the Food Fighters, but they're being sucked into these fights, and these fights aren't good. Griff gets shut down, and that's actually really significant. Then, I mean, they're getting Gold Fury, and you know, Griff's got the tower, but that's a nice little shutdown. That's really important for Killjoy, but it still feels like the Gold Diggers are getting pulled into these fights that they don't particularly want to take, because they're still at level deficits and they haven't actually been able to farm their lane or farm the jungle, farm any part of the map for the last 5 minutes, because it's been constant fighting. And that naturally will favour the team that already has level 20s and has a sizable gold and XP lead. That's naturally going to favour them, and they're absolutely right to be playing the way that they are, because it means that you're extending your lead and PGD are remaining kind of at the same level, and therefore the gap between the two teams is growing and growing and growing. That pick onto Griff will help things. You know, Killjoy is level 20. I'm not sure the build is doing as much as Tova Messers is doing at this stage. I think these solo builds are not as tanky as they may seem. You know, you've got all these defense items, but actually, you know, there's no dedicated. There's no dedicated anti-hunter items yet. That's something that we perhaps need to see. There are a few hybrid items in the end, and certainly the solos are doing a lot of damage. They're top. Both of them are top of the charts, but what it means is they are being able to get burned down quite easily, and that's made all the more effective by this crit that Tova Messer has got.
Now, there's definitely a fight brewing, and a demon there forced to leap up into the sky. It certainly does not have that dragonflight available for a while. No beads on this Yu Kwang. There's also certainly an opportunity there, and has to be so careful with their positioning in this moment. Ptolemy on the Thanatos doing their bit to just throw sides at people. There's not a whole lot else you can do until a team fight really breaks out. But again, like you were touching on, Zats, Food Fighters just doing their thing, which is netting them an increase of gold at all opportunities. Griff just pushing up this mid lane, causing a little bit of chaos, because how are you going to collapse onto this Camazotz now? Leaps up, does get the Athena ult as well, and a fantastic taunt from Halanu there puts Demon in so much danger, and Ice Age just keeps them alive, but only for a moment. Halanu executed down as goes down Ptolemy. Griff is low, but doesn't have the damage just yet. Now Killjoy finds it. Void Pain's still alive. Killjoy has to retreat with that more hungers. Now the mid Phoenix will go down, but Food Fighters losing 2. Won't go for the end just yet, but certainly away in the ascendancy now.
Yeah, maybe a tad early with still 2 tier 2 towers and a tier 1 tower in there. Still up, so that's going to be a tanky. Correct call. What I love though is that they're so willing, they're so willing to use their own lives to further the rest of the team. You know, Gaio Griff, I think positions really well, and frankly, Demon and the Pittsburgh Gold Diggers don't respect the Athena ult. They forget that it's in the game, and as a result, you get a massive 4-man taunt from Helenu. And then, yeah, they're willing to throw their health bars away, but it works because everyone is being so aggressive and so front foot. It means that actually it's working out really well for you, because everyone is on the same page. Everyone is trying to do the same thing. And even if you lose a couple of members, the gains you're getting are just enormous. And that's why they are well in the lead. And as you said, in the ascendancy at this stage of the game.
Is there anything for the Pittsburgh Gold Diggers to be concerned about in the context of this whole set? Now, I know the game isn't over yet, but it seems like the Food Fighters just kind of had their number everywhere. As much as the lanes were doing okay, there was always been this steady increase in the lead in favor of the Food Fighters here. Is there anything that fundamentally the Pittsburgh Gold Diggers have been doing wrong? Or is this more just a game that hasn't quite gone their way?
It does feel like the Food Fighters have come out with a plan. This is how they wanted to play against, and that they've executed that to perfection. Whereas on the other side, the Pittsburgh Gold Diggers have been a little slow out of the blocks. They've tried to do some things, but it feels like they're just doing, ranked stuff rather than actually playing as a team. And I think there's an element of you can get away with that in the first game of a best of three. You've still potentially got 2 more games. This is your kind of mulligan. You could try some stuff. You can see and gauge how effective the Food Fighters are, how easy or tough a set this is going to be. You can kind of do that in game number 1, but the problem is momentum is such a crucial aspect at all levels of Smite, particularly at this level. And that could actually mean that going into game number 2, if they don't match up with the same kind of energy that the Food Fighters have brought, then it could be over very, very quickly. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We're still in game number 1. Games can still swing very, very rapidly the other way. And all we need to see is, one good execute onto an important target without losing too much else. And then suddenly, back in the game, you've won that fight, you can pick up some objectives, and you can get right back into this game. So it's not over yet, but still a long way to go.
One thing I'd like to point out as well is the ward coverage that the Pittsburgh Gold Diggers have around this Fire Giant pit. Now, obviously, just a moment ago, they were more than comfortable to actually contend with a Fire Giant push. If the Food Fighters wanted to go for it, Pittsburgh Gold Diggers are going to meet them there. Now, with that fight going so poorly, with the mid lane Phoenix going down, despite all of this investment for this Fire Giant pit, do you still think that the Pittsburgh Gold Diggers should actually try and contest this?
I kind of see the argument. Maybe you should. The fact that it's not enhanced gives you a chance at that. But also, I've seen the way they play. I think they will absolutely contest this. And they do have the levels. Levels there is no deficit at all. Obviously, they're a bit behind on items still, but I think they can give this a good go. And, as a first-time face check on this Fire Giant defense, that one's not gone too badly. Let's see who it favors, because there's sustain on both sides as well in these longer engagements.
PGD just trying to keep this objective alive, and Starry wanting to do anything but that. Now the Cullen goes in first, has taken decent damage from Killjoy, but it's just creating so much space. Now the rest of the Food Fighters have arrived to back up, and Helen, who gets a taunt onto 2 enemies. Killjoy down already. That's a great Yu Huang ult, but is it going to matter? The Honkler and the whole front line under the tier 2 tower instead, and it has left everyone else high and dry. Now Helen, gets pulled under tower, but does not fall to the tower. Now Food Fighters have a choice here. Do they go for the end? It is just the front line, but the health bars are a little bit low. Are they going to go for the fire instead? They need to make their minds up here. You don't want to be losing things for free. It's Beads and Aegis down the Morgan. Great taunt again coming out from Helenu, and that just erases the rest of PGD. They have 22 seconds to play with on this dear side. That is one way to make your mind up. You just kill everyone else who's left standing.
It felt like their health bars weren't big enough to do Fire Giant or to go for an End or Phoenix or whatever, and then they just re-engage. So powerful and so easy to pull off, and they've snatched that win from one clean fight where no one died, and that was key. This time, Pittsburgh Gold Diggers weren't able to get any kind of pick, despite, I think, a lot of damage coming out from Demon on that Yu Huang. Killjoy was doing good damage as well, but died early on in that fight. And that was it. That was a major turning point. But the fact is, it was always in the Food Fighters' control, and it felt like, even though, health bars dropped a little bit, they looked a little bit uncertain, it was gifted right back at them when they both walked into a 2-person Athena ult, and that was it. That was the end of the game.
Well, first thing is, Zets, that normally here we would talk about what needs to change, and I think I already have the answer for you, and that is that Starry on this Cucullin has got to go. That cannot come back. If PGD have any hopes of seeing a game number 3. But luckily for us, we will at least be getting a game number 2. So we're going to go for a short break, but we'll be back very, very soon with the next game.
When I close my eyes, I can almost see it. When I take a breath, you fill up my lungs. And if my mind works backwards just for a minute, I'd hold on to you before the memory's gone. I remember you, you lift my spirit. With you high is all I'm feeling. Remember how we felt alive. I remember you, you make me stronger. Can't go without it much longer. Remember, remember.
All right, we are back with what feels like that's probably the fastest set of Smite in absolute history, because that was a 28-minute game just then, and it really did not feel like it. But despite all of the chaos sets, what do you think has to change for Pittsburgh Gold Diggers going into this second game?
I think it's very important, and we spoke a little bit about it at the end before the game had actually finished, about matching what Food Fighters were trying to do. Not in terms of draft, or not in terms of, how you're picking into the lanes. It's actually just about how you're playing the map as a team and coming out with all this energy that the Food Fighters brought, all this aggression, this proactivity. I use that word too much, but they really were proactive in everything they were trying to do. It was really fabulous to watch, and I really don't think that PGD were ready for it. It didn't look like they were prepared for the onslaught that was facing. Now, I think there's an element of you can accept that in the first game, and you can try and adjust to that. Maybe there are a few picks that could be different, and we will see when we go into the draft how, maybe you take away a few things, maybe you prioritize some pressure elsewhere, or take it away from the jungle, or however you choose to do it. It's about, once you get into the game, make sure you're matching them, make sure you're just not sitting back farming and hoping to get to late game, because that kind of play won't get you far enough, I think.
Well, let's see how the preparation goes for both these teams as we head on over to picks and bans for game number 2 between Food Fighters and Pittsburgh Gold Diggers, who have elected Zets to go for the second pick option rather than go for the top pick. Is that something you'd agree with here? Is there no real priority picks on the table?
I think that's fair. There's a lot up in the air in terms of who the top picks are in each role. This Chonga, actually not surprising, and I think the band game number 1 as well. It's considered one of the best picks at the moment in mid, so I could see that. But other than that, it looks like target bans already. The Camazots has been taken away from Gato Griff, no surprise at all. And interestingly, the Food Fighters actually choosing to ban away the Cullen despite being first pick. Not sure how they worked out that one. I guess they predicted that there would be a target ban, and so something else might be left open. I think that's probably what they're planning. But yeah, other than that, everything looks pretty standard. Strong picks being taken away, but I wonder if this was perhaps not available in the first game.
Yeah, possibly the Lancelot was what the Food Fighters were fishing for. I'm a little bit surprised to not see a Mulan there. That tends to be what happens is if Cucullin's not on the table, all of a sudden Mulan is much more open. Mulan considered by many to be the top soul laner in the game, but gets quite roughed up by a Cucullin matchup, actually. So with that not being there, I'm surprised to not see that. Maybe that's something that Pittsburgh Gold Diggers will go for. They do instead opt for the Charybdis and the Chalk pickup. Charybdis, of course, we saw in the previous game for Killjoy, did pretty much everything it could, right? Did its job, was safe in lane. I think only died once in the first 20 or so minutes. Late game was actually shredding through the front line. It only came to this chaotic fight where their backline got completely isolated, that the Pittsburgh Gold Diggers actually found the Charybdis in any sort of danger. So I'm not too surprised to see that coming through, but high priority onto this Chalk pick.
Yeah, interesting. It's a bit more pressure than the Hercules. I think Hercules can struggle a little bit in the laning phase. Has high kill potential but poor clear. Shaq is kind of decent kill potential and very good clear. And Shaq also has fantastic sustain. I don't mind it. I think Shaq can get a little lost in the late game. that will concern me a little bit. But probably as impactful as a Cullen would be. I'm not a big fan of this Charybdis, if I'm honest. I think it's very safe, but it's too low pressure. The ultimate is really, really tough to get right in a team fight, and 90% of the time you're better off just not using your ultimate at all. And I think when there are other hunters available, that's just never a good situation to be in. They've also picked a Geb, but super low pressure. And again, if I'm the Food Fighters, if I'm Gator Griff on this Lancelot, I am looking at that duo lane, because I think that Geb can get really isolated, and if you pick a nice aggressive support to fight into it, which could possibly be this Cerberus, we'll see where that goes. There's a bit of flex potential there, but I'm very, very worried about the Pittsburgh Gold Diggers duo lane, even more so than last game.
Yeah, I think this Geb has the potential to be ridiculously punished, and it does seem like the Pittsburgh Gold Diggers are reacting a lot to the Cerberus pick by going for this double cleanse style, right? But Charybdis and Chuck, extremely safe gods in their own right, so definitely not some gods who really need that type of support. So I am surprised to see so much focus here. By the way, guys, it is Food Fighters who come into this game 1-0, so not the correct scoreline just there. But yes, it will be more pressure on the Pittsburgh Gold Diggers to get that right. Oh, thank you, production, for fixing that one for us. But yeah, like magic, we are all square again. But again, I think Pittsburgh Gold Diggers playing or picking very reactively here, and I'm not personally enjoying the draft so much at the moment.
No, I agree. I don't really see what they're trying to do with any of these picks. I mean, I don't mind Chiron. I'm assuming that it's going to be the Chiron mid, most likely. Yeah. Chiron is a perfectly decent mid laner. I also think he's a perfectly decent hunter. I think he's better than Charybdis, actually. So I think Chiron will be better in either role. Again, I'm not going to go on about the Charybdis again, but yeah, I'm just not really sure what their game plan is here. The back line is, as you mentioned, reasonably safe. I don't know what they're doing with this Geb.
A mighty sword!
Al Kwong is the last pick for the Pittsburgh Gold Diggers. It feels like a ranked comp, doesn't it, Judas? That's what it feels like. It feels like 5 players are going to pick their best gods and try and go 10-0 into a team of the Food Fighters who are very much a team, and the way they play together as a unit, and I think we've discussed them before as well, that they know each other, and they've got good synergy. And when you give them a team like that into the team that PGD have got, I have to say I'm not optimistic about their chances, but I'd be happily proven wrong. But at the moment, I'm definitely favouring the Food Fighters just from their draft and their team fight alone.
Yeah, I think you're right as well, especially discussing the way that this draft likely came about, because I severely doubt that after the Charybdis and the Chark were locked in by Pittsburgh Gold Diggers, someone said, oh, we'll probably pair that with Ao Kwang. Right, it really doesn't feel like the jungler was planned into this composition. Again, it could go well for Pittsburgh Gold Diggers. It's not like they were down and out of that game by any stretch for a long period of it. It was only towards the 20-ish minute mark. There was a big team fight that went the way of Food Fighters, and from there, Pittsburgh Gold Diggers pretty much felt out of it. But up until that point, even having a rough start, they certainly felt relevant. And again, going for this execute from the jungle as well certainly could be majorly impactful, especially if they can chain it together, right? I just don't see compositionally any real strengths for Pittsburgh Gold Diggers over the Food Fighters.
And the biggest problem for me, Judas, is the fact that Food Fighters have got their top pick and it has not been effectively dealt with already in the picks and bans. You need hard CC, you need stuns. How are you getting Lancelot off that horse?
You got Gabble.
I'm really, really concerned about that. Again, I just think they're not looking at that. It feels like they maybe haven't done their homework. But I don't like to be too critical, because once you get into the game, it can be completely different. The pace, I hope, will be different from them, and I hope they're a little more proactive. I'm going to use that word again, Judas. But from their comp so far, if anything, it's going to be a lot less and a lot slower. And I don't think Food Fighters are going to allow that to happen for 1 second.
Yeah, it definitely feels like with the way that Food Fighters are drafted, they've come into this with a big plan. They know exactly where, where they're going to put out this pressure. You can see this Lancelot has the option to just run riot into the Pittsburgh Gold Diggers. Like you said, there is nothing that the Pittsburgh Gold Diggers can do to actually get him off this horse too much. We are talking a Gebel, which, alright, is an option, and possibly the Ao Kuang ult. I'm not exactly sure how that works. Maybe the Lancelot has to be within execute range for that to work. I just feel like we're going to see the Ao Kuang grab the Lancelot and he just rides away and doesn't really care about it. But, we see this Cerberus, which unlikely to have a whole lot of success with that Stygian Torment just because of the access to CC Mutant Ultimates on the side of PGD with the double cleanse coming out from the Chiron and the Geb. But you don't really pick Cerberus for those big ultimates, right? You certainly don't have that big mage to combo with. It's hardly like this draft is solely focused on comboing one ult into another and then trying to disengage from a fight. It's anything but. If anything from there, I think the Food Fighters just have, again, this ability to run riot. Because even if Lancelot does decide to dive deep, you can get followed by the Cerberus, by the Gilgamesh, even the X-Ball with that Darkest of Nights able to impact those fights. And I'm just so worried for PGD, but it is up to them, Zet, to prove us wrong. So let's see if they can do that as we head on over to game number 2 with Food Fighters taking a 1-0 lead into this game. Where does the hope lie for PGD, Zet? How do they win this game?
I actually think a lot of it will fall onto Demon. I think the Chiron is their best pick. It's the one that makes the most sense for me. And I think Demon was doing a lot of damage. Did have a lot of pen in that build and was shredding tanks in that first game of that Yu Huang. Chiron, slightly different kettle of fish, but actually the ability to get off a lot of damage from range using that Centaurus. It's going to be really important that there's not a lot of setup for him to hit those ultimates. So you're relying a lot on your mid laner to do some good damage. But I think Ptolemy is going to struggle to find any space on this Ao Huang. As good a pick as I think it is a ranked pub stomper, and I think it will struggle in this sort of competitive environment. But it remains to be seen. I do think a lot rests on the shoulders of Dean.
Now, I would like to point out, since it is actually Starry Acuity piloting the Lancelot solo with the Gilgamesh in the jungle. I'm not too surprised to see this. I think I probably would have preferred it the other way around based on how the draft actually turned out for PGD, but it's still such a strong pick on this Gilgamesh, and the potential, again, similarly to the Lancelot, to just run riot.
Yeah, I actually do prefer this combination. I think Gilgamesh solo is not great, and I think Lancelot solo is better. Jungle, I mean, Lancelot is a premier jungler at the moment, but I actually think Gilgamesh is his best role, so I'm fairly happy with that. I think Lance won't be too concerned, I say that, with the Shack, but actually at the moment, it's Honkler with a lot of pressure onto Starry. I do think it's the similar kind of pick, but here comes Gator Griffin. Again, the Gilgamesh is really good at this. One drop kick and that's it.
He's teleported, but the miss with the drop kick. Starry now looping over just to get a bit of lockdown in. There should be enough damage, and Griff does it again. The cringe gank of cringe gank can only be made more cringe when you do it a second time. So, unfortunately there, for the Honkler not respecting that potential gank and maybe not communicated well enough. It was later, about a minute later this time, but still you have to be aware of those.
Yeah, but it's that point of the game, isn't it, where jungler and mid have finished clearing camps. Everyone's finished clearing their camps, and the only place for the jungler to go is either left lane or right lane. I think you have to know a gank is coming, and again, if you're in this ranked mindset, maybe you're not thinking about that, but that's what it feels like to me. And yeah, a little bit sloppy from the Pittsburgh Gold Diggers to let it happen for a second time. So yeah, good pressure here coming out from Food Fighters in that duo lane. I'm a big fan of this Cerberus in support. I think he's a little underrated there. There's another gank coming out.
Another gank onto the Honkler, who probably does not have the teleport away and will not. I'm pretty sure we saw that last time as well. Just a secondary gank to really put pressure onto this Chuck. Every other lane is relatively stale. You know, there's action on this dual lane, but no presence of the junglers prevents that scale from being tipped too far. So with this Soul Lane just being so pressured and the fantastic dropkick right into the wall, Ptolemy will dish out some decent damage back, but level 5 for Griff means that is just such a threatening Gilgamesh. Now, the Honkler is here this time. No level 5s for the side of PGD, but there are level 5s on the side of Food Fighters. So this blue going to be so under threat. The Honkler just wishes upon wishes that they could get that ultimate, but does not have it. Starry shall secure the blue buff away. Griff, no mana to work with, so Honkler so badly wants to make something happen, but just cannot. All the pressure, again, with Food Fighters this game.
Really, really nicely played. And although the pace feels slightly slower, in a way, it's exactly the same for the Food Fighters. That pressure in solo. I think the key difference is that last game, Ptolemy was on the Thanatos and was able to get some ganks in response, and they actually managed to kill Starry in that early laning phase. This time, Alcon, level 4, not able to contest. Gator Griff does a really good job of recognizing that, you know, health bar is not the best, but Alcon really doesn't have a lot of options at this stage and just pushes Ptolemy out. And then it's 2v1. Honkler can't do anything without ultimates. It's always going to be a mismatch. And actually, again, nicely recognized from the Foo Fighters. They're calculated in the way that they're playing forward and aggressive like that. It's almost to a perfect level. And I really love to see that. I think they're going to keep doing it as well. Because the fact is the rest of the team, as we mentioned, are doing just fine. There's good pressure in that dual lane. Tovamessa trying to back. Ptolemy blinks in.
Oh no. Blinks in, doesn't manage to get any damage off, and just gets ulted under the tower for their troubles. Now, obviously, that is the Stygian Torment down, but Food Fighters are more than happy with that sort of trade. And the Hogger on this Chark, unfortunately, feeling the suffering that a few Soul Laners get before level 5, does have level 5 now, so hopefully for them, they can at least find their way out of some of these engagements. Does teleport at quite a short range as Starry wants to come in, dishes out decent damage back, and will be there safely. Just throws out some taunts for their troubles. You're 0-2, mate, but all right, you do you. Feel free. But yeah, that is finally a gank that doesn't go the way of the Food Fighters.
Yeah, I was mentioning how it was almost perfect. That was why it's almost. As soon as that drop kick doesn't connect with the stun, you just have to back off there. You know, there's nothing more to be gained. And the fact is, they both end up taking a ton of damage from that Shack ultimate. It's enormous damage on that Stormcore, but yeah, that was just a little bit too much. But again, you're in the state of the game where it doesn't really matter because there's no punish on you. You know, I think Void made a rotation on this Geb over to the solo lane. You know, what's a Geb going to do? It's a level 6 Geb. He's got the sprint ready. There's nothing happening there. So it's unpunished, and the fact is, Food Fighters know that they can play like that. They're not getting punished for it because there's even less pressure from the side of the Pittsburgh Gold Diggers with this Alquan, with this Geb. They're so reliant on getting to late game, and I think, and even if they do, they're still getting out team for, I think, because of the amount of circles that the Food Fighters just have at their disposal. It's a very, very long way, and although this is a slow-paced game, it feels like there's less of a fight coming out from the Gold Diggers in this game, weirdly. So it feels more one-sided, and perhaps that's because Food Fighters are actually being a little bit cleaner with their engagements and their play so far.
Yeah, when a team is playing, you know, tidily, organized, not just, you know, fights and kills all over the map, it really makes a difference in the potential for you to come back in, right? It's not like there was a double tower dive there that the Charcoalers interrupted, right? All they did was pressure him until he had to ult, and the Honkler seemed to feel quite good about that at the time, but the only thing you got out of that was the Lancelot ult as well. And, you know, if both of you don't have ults, all of a sudden Griff is having the biggest impact. Oh, but that's a fantastic ult. Killjoy needs a couple more basics. He's going to walk into melee range to guarantee it. But this Charybdis, like we'd mentioned earlier, Zed, the stalwart for PGD in game number 1. Will they have more of an opportunity in game 2? That's one way to get yourself on the front foot.
That is script considerably flipped with that 1v1 kill. There's another gank going on, but Tommy is here this time.
Yeah, this time there is the response from Food Fighters, aggression, and there is the stun onto Griff. Uses the beads on the Gilgamesh, not going to matter. Void Pain sweeping up that kill. Now Helenu is here, so there might be a little bit of danger, but the Cerberus on his own certainly going to struggle to really finish off any of these kills. Zareth has rotated, as has Demon. The mid laners just kind of sizing each other up on this side of the map. Honkler no mana to work with, so this Tiamat should be pretty safe. There's not really a whole lot left in the tank for PGD, but in the space of about a minute, Zats, 2 kills for the Chaos side, and they're looking a whole lot better off.
And of course, worth mentioning that third kill for Dr. Killjoy as well. It's a really big swing, and I don't really know where it's come from, but I do want to talk about that 1v1 in duo if we get the chance. It was that rare occasion where the X-Well dash gets caught before you get into the air, before you become CC immune. And again, Killjoy using that Charybdis ultimate really effectively, and it's tough to use that ult like that at point blank range, but pulled it off really well and gets a solo kill. And that, as I said, the script has been flipped, turned on its head with that, and then they seem to find a load more momentum with that solo lane gank, which was again felt like they were going a little bit too far. Gator Griff did get the stun this time, but Shaq is, I think, more of a threat than Lancelot is at this stage of the game. Certainly does more damage. Tova Mesa getting ganked, and could be a second kill. Ptolemy dashes forward.
Good body block, gets the beads, and there's the ultimate coming out. Or num num num, says Ptolemy. That will be a dead Tova Mesa yet again. So, in the blink of an eye, in literally 2 minutes' time, PGD have really swung this game around. So the team without a whole lot of pressure to exude have now started to do that somewhat, especially in this dual lane. Charybdis is one of those gods that can do that if given the opportunity, but can they convert this even further? You need a lot more than just a couple of picks here and there.
Yeah, that's true, but I think the fact they've actually got a gold lead this game, it feels like they're in a much better position. Look at that damage from Helenu. Server support is really, really fun for that sole reason alone. It is interesting, though, that I actually think Helenu has struggled to make an impact. It feels like in game number 1, they were setting the pace and choosing where to go. Ptolemy getting aggressive here. Centaurus comes out. How much damage?
Looks like the damage was enough to threaten the chase down. Helenu does what they can, but finds themselves swarmed right now. Griff providing a bit of peel. Honkler can't find the last bit of damage, but Griff now has put themselves too far forward. Almost got the leap, but did not get it. Void Pain 2-0, and Honkler finds the axe over the wall. All the momentum with PGD, Zats, and Zareth makes the rotation over. Starry here trying to make something happen, doesn't find it, and the complete stall that Food Fighters have hit here is shocking.
It's completely different, and I do think it's actually down to the supports. I mentioned that this Geb and made a joke about how Geb's rotating to solo, what can Geb do, but actually that just the presence of being there ahead of Helenu, who is actually, I think, struggling to make meaningful rotations here. And that's actually causing Food Fighters their biggest problem at this stage of the game. It feels like they're being finessed across the map, left, right, and centre. You turn one way and actually, Geb's in the other lane, and Ptolemy's in the other lane, actually, I'm just late to this fight now. And as a result, they're just taking these fights on numbers advantage as Tova Mesa picks up the green buff. It just feels like they're choosing to take fights quickly and on their terms, and that's because they've got the numbers there to back it up. They're willing to rotate more, to maybe lose out on some of their farm, and I think that is showing still across the board. You're still a little bit behind in solo, in mid, so you're giving up something, but what you're getting back is momentum, and you're getting these good fights. But aggression onto the Honkler, this looks like quite a big commit.
Whoa. Yeah, lots of ultimates coming out, and the Stone Cold already down from the Honkler, so that's for that fight, but this does make space for the Gold Fury to go the way of Pittsburgh Gold Diggers. So they are going to commit to this. There is not a whole lot that Zareth can do. Going to make an attempt and cannot do anything in time. I'm sure they were aware he actually had Demon on zone duty there, but just too much committed in the solo lane, and that's what PGD need to do. Like you said, finesse across the map. If the fights aren't going to be the easiest thing to take, then take whatever you can. And a proper 1v1 here. Basics back and forth. The RC procs from both sides. Dr. Killjoy gets the fight, but does not connect the ultimate. Now Griff on the scene. Killjoy has nothing to work with, but can sweep down their opposing number. Uses the beads, gets into the whirlpool form. Is there any help arriving? No. Killjoy tries to help themselves and just dies for it. But winning the 1v1s, that's always an important thing. There's the Gebel to knock them off the horse. There's the damage to knock Starry off again, the horse. The chase down coming through, knocks into a wall, but does dash through him as well. This Lancelot so hard to lock down on the horse yet again. Void Pain cannot catch up. This Lancelot, that's, I'm sure, a sign of things to come, but still, Pittsburgh Gold Diggers happy enough with how that extended engagement went.
Yeah, it's Spike 101, isn't it? They send 3 people over and they lose Gold Fury because of that. It's very good recognition from PGD. And then you have that trade in the duo lane. Tovamessa hasn't been getting the best of these trades, it's fair to say. And I'm a little bit surprised. It feels like Killjoy has the momentum. It's just hitting more stuff at the moment. But then, Tovamessa comes back in, despite Gaegriff coming over, and that kill was always going to happen. And Tovamessa really doesn't need to step up and take a pointless death there that kind of makes the kill onto Killjoy irrelevant. It kind of ruins that gank from a jungler's point of view. So, yeah, Pittsburgh Gold Diggers in a really good spot, slightly ahead. It's such a complete change from the first game, and I think Ptolemy is doing a lot better, having some good success on this Alcon, and I think that's because there's a lot more space and setup from this Geb, from the Shack, and Chiron is making these rotations as well that feel fairly impactful. It feels weirdly a lot more synergized, which is interesting because that's the complete opposite of what we were saying when we first looked at the draft. Now, I think there's some things that are still very much behind the Food Fighters, and again, it's another massive commit, and this time there's no Gold Fury to get instead of it, so what's the response going to be?
Ogler getting all of the peel in the world, does have the Stormfall and uses it fantastically there. All the while, Zazith has actually died in mid lane, so Void Pain showing up and showing what a Geb can do in solo lane. In fact, wants to go for the hit as well, does not get it onto Griff, who has to leap away. And yeah, like I said, Pittsburgh Gold Diggers pick up a kill in mid lane despite all of this aggression. So again, another engagement goes their way. They want to dive this.
And actually, I think Ptolemy's going to get it. Gets those dragons off so easily, and Starry on that horse is going to be tough to chase down. That's a long time to tank.
Just let it go.
Oh, Starry
does they get it.
And Honkler is also out. That's a massive kill swing. Zarzith was killed earlier. Helenu and Starry have fallen now as well. It's another 3 kill swing, and it all comes off of they try and gank Honkler again, and this Shack. But it's proving time and time again that you cannot overcommit.
Yeah, definitely not reacting to the fact that this Chuck has grown into the game. There's the Whirlpool form down, does pop the ultimate and avoids the drop kick, and that will be that for the aggression. Tovamessa not able to get involved in that gank attempt, and Griff seeing what it's like to try and gank a Charybdis. It pretty much goes like that every time.
Yeah, and I don't really know why. I mean, I think Shibalonke is a perfectly fine ADC. I don't know why Tovamessa has opted to change up the build here. Now, we see Pyromancer go down for the Pittsburgh Gold Diggers. In response, it's going to be a Gold Fury pull for the Food Fighters, their first Gold Fury pull of the game, but they're going to back up a little bit here because, again, Pittsburgh Gold Diggers, they're actually a bit quicker getting around this map, and Onkler has rotated. They are now outnumber the Food Fighters, and it should be theirs for the taking.
Tony saw that's really going to do it. Griff goes in and gets it. Wow! With the tiny tick from those sands. That is that. I can't believe that actually managed to secure it. That's one of the lowest damaging things on the map.
Yeah.
And yet somehow the winds of Shamash, what is that? So we're talking a couple of 100 damage, 200 damage maybe, minus a little bit of that.
20 damage tick.
And it was a tick too, right? Yes, wow.
I think it was a tick.
incredible. Yeah, that's why you never give these things up, Sense, especially if you have something like that. So, something that the Food Fighters definitely needed, because the gold is still very close in the charts. One thing the Food Fighters have done well this game is they were all over the Bull Demon. Maybe even got every single Bull Demon in the game. I'm pretty sure that could well be the case. So, now, with the game being at a very even state, if not slightly trending towards PGD with the momentum, this is where you'd say Food Fighters really want to try and make a stand.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. They've been playing the map and their objectives better. It's actually almost like they tried to play the same way in game number 1. They're being punished a lot more. Honkler is getting ganked, is pretty far down in terms of levels, and doesn't have a tower available. Probably eventually going to fall, though Ptolemy is on the way.
Ooh, used it too early for the damage, but Ptolemy sweeping in. Griff super low, is just in execute range, but I don't think they've got it anymore. Have to now retreat, do PGD as well, because this Lancelot is strong, but the Honkler sticks around long enough. Whoa! Drop kicked out of the way there. He sprinted to go get this. Geb wants it. Geb will not get it. The Honkler still surviving. Starry up there. Absolutely nothing going on of any kind of value over here. Everyone just brawling it out.
You're absolutely right. It's all completely pointless. Little skirmish there. I think Demon, the hacker at the moment, but he knows. Zarzif knows that the help is coming, Helenu. And that's Aegis. And the beats forced.
Oh my goodness.
Quite enough. It was almost enough, but Demon gets both relics used, and now Helenu possibly in some trouble. It jumps right around.
There's an arrow coming in to slow him down. Void Ping goes in first, but Helenu alive. Nice stun on the Ptolemy, just about. Doesn't connect with the drop kick there. Does Griff. Honkler coming in, but here comes Starry from the backside as well. Doesn't connect with the ultimate, but still has plenty of damage and will take down this Ao Kuang. Now, who wants to be on the front foot and who's on the back foot? It's hard to tell, but it seems like Food Fighters are somewhat disengaging. However, here comes Tova. Master Stormclaw only connecting with one. This is a 4 versus 5 in favor of Food Fighters here. Ptolemy out of this fight still. Demon has returned to the fight to dish out some damage. All of that sets for only 1 kill, but my goodness, it could have very quickly got out of control.
Yes, tied with the 2 mids scrapping over the Stygian beacon. Hard to say who would have won that in a fair 1v1, but it was not a fair 1v1 as Helenu made that rotation. And Zarzif, well aware of that, was willing to go in a little bit further. It's a 4-level deficit for Honkler. I mean, one thing you will say, there's been a lot of ganks, maybe some overcommitments, but it's working in terms of keeping Starry well ahead. Interestingly, though, I do think the Honkler has had good impact in some of these scraps in the solo side, in some of these team fights as well. You know, there's no denying the power of that Shack ultimate. Drop kick is not great. The dash is not great either, but they're going to punish Gate.
Oh my goodness! So much damage. The Centaurus just to finish it. Griff there. Punished for what was an opportunity they saw, but an opportunity that goes a begging. Ptolemy has to retreat because it's very hard to get onto all of the backliners in this game. That is something that's very notable, that everyone on the backline got to just have a nice time of it. I think that's why we've seen so much frontline scrapping. And in fact, speaking of frontline scrapping, Honkler going deep. Ptolemy into sweep up. Do they have the damage? Wow. Yes, they do. And can also teleport out. Now, Helenu picks up the Honkler for a reason no one can understand. And instead just dishes out some damage. Starry behind enemy lines and sees that line too thick to cross. Still, though, interested in this. They know there is no stun. That is really going to be coming their way. Pyromancer, half HP. Quite low, and PGD will secure it. Starry there with a high view to watch it and just marching around the Geb. What is Geb gonna do other than that? And now the Oni Fury being done by Food Fighters. This game is quickly delving into a bit of chaos.
It is much like before Killjoy. With the steal potential, the lights are out, and PGD get it. Killjoy steals, beats Aegis, will be able to get out, will they? Yes, they will.
Oh, and there's the Cataclysm coming out, followed up with the Centaurus as well. Griff taking big damage. Helenu slowed actually is an opportunity here, because here comes the Honkler Demon picking up that kill. Big crit from the Chiron. And now the big Gold Fury going the way of PGD. They'd already got the Pyromancer. Zareth might be in a little bit of danger. No tier 1 tower to get back to here, but all of the momentum with PGD.
Madness. And then we see PGD take the Pyromancer and you think, okay, well, Food Fighters, as has been the theme of this game, they will go to the other side of the map and go for that Gold Fury. Little damage check from Ptolemy. Not particularly relevant on dealing with that horse. But yeah, it's in theory, there's nothing wrong with that play, but you just have to respect the steal attempt from Killjoy, who has had a much better game than game number 1. Much more impact,
Yes.
not playing, not as if it was a bad game in game number 1, but actually, enjoying those 1v1s a little more, and as a result, is having much more of an impact than the Shibalonke is in these bigger fights that have started breaking out across the map, and that's concern for me. I think the X-Ball is not having the impact you'd want. I think Zarzif is actually playing really well on this tier map. I have no problems with that, but the Cerberus is struggling. The ults have not been finding good value, I think it's fair to say, and compared to the Geb of all things, who's actually having a really good game at being really disruptive, just like this, and gets 2 sets of beats. What's going
Just
on?
doing whatever Void Pain wants, but actually now might find themselves lacking a little bit here. Has to shield themselves to get away from Starry. Starry gives chase right on top of Killjoy. Needs an opportunity on this Charybdis. The Honkler is low and does fall down to Tova. Good fight now for Food Fighters. Tova in danger, but still alive despite the danger. Helenu, big ultimate, does get the ult out from Killjoy. Killjoy now trying to retreat, goes under the water from Zarzit. Does get the knockup, but doesn't get the kill. Demon similarly just about retreats, but a fantastic fight for the Food Fighters. 1 for 3.
Yeah, 3 for 1 in favour of the Food Fighters. How on earth has that happened? And not really sure. It felt like at that time Void Pain got rightfully punished for running at the support in the mid and getting both their beads, but then they kind of lost the fight after the fact, and that's because Yegeb was not there to provide those shields that you really, really needed in that fight. But both their carries survived on a hair of HP. You're not concerned about Honkler dying because Honkler's done that plenty and still had more of an impact than this Lancelot at this stage, I think. So you're not concerned about that. You kept your carries alive. A long way from being disastrous, but the fact is the Food Fighters are ahead. And here we go. There's a proper fight going on. I'm a little bit surprised that Killjoy didn't go more aggressive for that one. Zarzith already taken a ton of damage just from a few autos, but deciding not to go over aggressive this Killjoy. And we go back to a slightly calmer state of affairs as everyone goes back to farming for the next 2 seconds or however long it'll be.
Yeah, starting for a little bit of farming. Starry there does get hit with the Cataclysm, but probably still safe enough to get out when needed. In fact, has the ultimate in the pocket, so absolutely just waiting to bait out a little bit more commitment. Here's Ptolemy. That should spell disengage for Starry, and yet just retreats on the tower safely. Still has that ultimate in pocket, so no jousting lists for the time being. It'll just be a lot of expended abilities from Pittsburgh Gold Diggers, and Void Pain finds himself a half HP. There is maybe a bit of space here for Food Fighters, but given the way this game's gone, Zets, not surprising to see them play this quite slowly.
Yeah. It's certainly not been their game to control, completely unlike it was in game number 1. As we keep comparing the two. Zarvitz is getting engaged on here. Gets a good jump over the wall actually, and will get them out without using anything, which is really important. Meanwhile, the Pyromancer did go down, the PGD I think, and they're playing actually really, really smart around the map, and it feels like you know, we talked about their comp, how it wasn't quite cohesive. Starry is pretty aggressive here, and they're desperate to try and lock down the Lancelot. Goes in with the Grand Jaster, trying to find Ptolemy.
Oh my goodness, circles go absolutely flying. Killjoy with the first kill of this fight. Starry is low and Starry is out. Ptolemy takes to the sky and takes the heel. Helenu takes down their opposite number, and Killjoy gets taken down by Tova Mesa. There's X-Ball now, freedom to swing. Demon tries to do what they can, but the Chiron gets smacked in the face by the bowlers. Ptolemy now the only one left standing and has nothing to show for it. A triple kill from Tova Mesa. Is that the end? Are they going for the end and not looking at the fire sets? They're looking to push up mid.
I think they'll go for a mid Phoenix. It's much too much to try and end from this position. Tova Mesa is doing a lot of damage. That's one crit item. That's just the Gilded Arrow upgrade. And frankly, Tova Mesa went enormous there. When you, I guess when you lose that 1v1 and you're generally not impacting the game for the last 25 minutes, people kind of forget that you're a hunter who's nearly full build and you just swing and you kill people. And frankly, they didn't respect that, and they kind of let Tova Mesa do what they wanted. And the fight wasn't going badly for them. They already got, I think, a couple of kills. The engage was decent for them, and I think they'd gotten through a lot of the big circles that the two fighters had, but actually it was more of a distraction technique, and it allowed Tova Mesa so much room, so much space to just start free casting on whoever they saw. And particularly we saw in that kind of 1v1 standoff between Demon and Tova Mesa, that Kyrian was no match for a traditional ADC with a traditional ADC build, which is, I think, a really big turning point. And we've talked about scripts being flipped. It just flipped back the way we originally thought it was going to go. You know, we talked about how I think Demon was the really important player for this team, and a lot was relying on this Chiron. And to be fair, before that, they were 3-0, doing a ton of damage, being generally just really effective in using those Sator assaults and getting that long-range poke. Starry is toying with them on the horse. Hasn't been punished a few times, but now Zara's already low. Needs to be careful here.
Oh, has to use the beads early. Oh, the Centaurus just off the mark there from Demon, just out of the range. Griff is committed with that drop kick and didn't connect. Has to use the beads on the slow from Demon. The damage coming over the wall from Demon. Griff in big danger, but it's still unlocked. Killjoy has to commit themselves forward. Tova has free range to just swing on enemies now. The Honkler, the only one who can deal with them, but now has no backup, and Tova with another multi-kill. A rampage for this Jibalanke, who has shown up massively in this late game stage.
And I actually love what Gator Griff did there, and Heleny to extent as well. Gator was probably a little bit far forward, but actually has transitioned into this more hybrid build, which is clearly working well because it allowed Gator Griff to get out with a sliver of HP. And it worked perfectly because, once again, all the focus was on this. You know, this guy's on a horse. This guy's really low on health. The Cerberus didn't hit on that stun. Okay. Oh, but where's X-Bot? Oh, he's just killed Demon once again. Or Honkler, I should say. That's proving to be a big problem. Tova Mesa can fight anyone right now, and I'm not sure who's supposed to stand up for it because, again, this Shack is really going to struggle with the build that they've gone with no dedicated physical defense item, and now it looks like they're going to get a Fire Giant for free. Honkler can't get here in time. Pittsburgh Gold Diggers will be caught lacking, and now they're in big trouble. They're going to be able to disengage fairly cleanly, I think, but Food Fighters still fancy going on here.
We'll need to play on the defensive, and that tier 2 is not a target worth defending. Zareth goes in first, takes a chunk of damage, but is happy to get on out of there. Griff gets engaged on by Ptolemy, but this tanky Gilgamesh is slippery enough. Starry now instead wants to engage onto the Ao Kuang, who is taking a lot of damage, uses the beads, and just gets melted. Lancelot doing Lancelot things, leaps off the horse. Now might be in a bit of danger, but Killjoy finds themselves frontlining for their team. There are minion waves going down that middle lane, which now the Food Fighters will rotate to in order to secure that one. Still pressurizing this right side Phoenix though, and PGD are really going to struggle. The frontliner here, but Killjoy is showing up a little bit late to the party, and it looks like Demon in danger, has to beads and get out. Tova does finally fall down to Killjoy. This Charybdis dishing out the damage still, but has to be very, very careful. Use the Whirlpool form, and is back. The mid lane Phoenix goes up, and the mid lane Phoenix goes right back down to Griff. But PGD still holding this base here, Zets.
Yeah, you're not too unhappy if you're the Food Fighters, though. You keep that mid Phoenix down, getting actually trying to divert some more attention away. It might open the door for this Phoenix. Gets the kill. What's a Killjoy? This opened the game right up.
Yeah, definitely left their follow backliner exposed there. Did Demon, but Griff does go down. This right lane Phoenix still stands tall. The beads comes out from the Cerberus, but it does not matter. So only the mid lane Phoenix going down. So we find ourselves at actually very similar position despite good pressure from Food Fighters.
So who knows what kind of kill swings we saw there, but the end result is mid Phoenix did fall again. They lost quite a few for it, but we know, and we saw in Game 1 how willing Food Fighters are to give up a certain amount to get these objectives and to get these calls. So they'll be fairly happy with that. They did lose probably a little bit more than they'd have liked. You know, they picked up Killjoy in the back end, but it was a bit of an overcommit. They didn't do any more to that right-hand side tower. And again, that's because Killjoy had somehow dealt with Tova Mesa on that right side. It feels poised, I'm going to say, Judas. Once again, we're at that position where, okay, that Fire Giant has worn off nearly. I mean, Zarzith still has it, and it's not so relevant on Starry, but Fire Giant isn't relevant anymore, but they're going to get the Oni Fury. Tova Mesa doing a good job of taking that down solo. Pyromancer is on the board as well. A little bit of time until Fire Giant's back up. Starry going for it. May have stepped forward a bit too much here. No,
I had the ult for safety. Do you know what is so tilting about this, Zat? Is Starry is also ever so slightly lagging.
Yes,
so this is so frustrating to watch. It's like if you're a PGD, you certainly don't want to commit onto this Lancelot because you might find they just fly across the map anyway, and it's going to be so frustrating to be watching this guy just march in front of your face like that. It's horrible. Still has the horse, dismounts, and will remount very shortly afterwards. And in typical Starry Executive fashion, Zats, we find ourselves in a bat of stasis mode. But how do you foresee these next few minutes going, right? We do see Starry messing around a bit, but how should the PGD react? Oh, never mind, actually, they're reacting by dishing out big damage onto Zareth. There's the masterful shot as well. Do Food Fighters engage on this, though? I don't feel like they should.
No, a bit of a nothing engage. They send Zareth back, and actually that just means they've slowed down what PGD might have been trying to do, you know, if they were feeling a little bit aggressive, and now a little bit off the mark there. That's you know, we've seen it a little bit more this game. They've not quite been on the money with those kind of synchronized plays that we saw so well in Game 1. We've still seen them this game, but not quite to the same effect. And as a result, PGD, they're still under the cosh though, and there we go. Tova Mesa and a Pyro Bomb takes down the left wave. It's just a lot of pressure now. This is still off that original Fire Giant, which has now dropped away. That's the kind of pressure that the PGD are under still.
They killed that really fast and left, actually. I'm quite surprised at how fast that did actually go down. There must have been a minion in there. And Tova Mesa forced to beads, actually. But Ptolemy does not decide to go in. Would have been a dangerous engagement for sure. But that Shibalonki is such a high priority target. But now with the Phoenixes down, it's going to be so hard for PGD to step up. They're looking to step up onto Hell. A new Griff there, dropping the ult to Peel. And Honkler cannot get anything done. There's the Stygian Torment as well. And now Food Fighters just have full control of the map. Starry being back on the map, it's just such a danger for PGD's that's because they cannot let this Lancelot go unchecked.
No, it is really tough to deal with. I feel a bit of sympathy for them because it's not entirely clear what they can do about it. But I would also say they had a chance to remedy that in picks of bans, you know, and they are clearly struggling with dealing with it. You know, not so much that it's their biggest problem at the moment. In a way, you can ignore it to an extent, but frankly, the damage that Star is doing is just enough to concern you if you're a
Starry
PGD
gets that.
backliner. Actually, Starry is gonna try and sneak that mid Phoenix. Goes for the beads.
Oh, use the beads.
That's maybe a bit much.
So maybe a bit much and doesn't actually secure it, but Tova Mesa picks up a kill onto Ptolemy at that
Just
time.
a
Hold
big
on.
distraction.
Demon is there. Demon is at the Fire Giant pit, but has backed away. And Stern, looking back at it, drops the Raven Ward.
Gotta be now.
Demon's perfectly positioned, fires the shot, and PGD steal it away. Demon there, perfectly played. That is what you want to see a Raven Ward used for, and that's all the while. This mid lane Phoenix still hasn't gone down. If PGD can play this rapid defense, they might be able to claw their way back into this one.
Massive play. It's one of the few times that we see Raven Wards used effectively to get a Fire Giant steal with the range on that Centaurus. Brilliant work. Tova Mesa does take that last or that mid Phoenix down using that Darkest of Night. It's a massive play though. It's a highlight reel play. It's just what you want to see. And once again, it is Demon who is shouldering the burden of keeping PGD in the game. That is an enhanced Fire Giant. Everyone but Ptolemy has it. It's such a massive play, and frankly, you know, Starry's Q was doing decent work around that mid Phoenix. Didn't get it well, and they eventually got that mid Phoenix, but was unfortunately distracting the wrong target and did not pick up where Demon was, where that Coronet was, and that should have been the main concern of Force Steal potential.
Yes.
They didn't pick up on it. Demon manages to get a really nice looking play off, and it keeps them relevant and in this game. Now they can use this enhanced Fire Giant to get their Phoenixes back up, essentially. That's what this is going to be about. Put them on a level playing field, ready for the next Fire Giant. Maybe you can get aggressive if you're in the right situation. If you've got your right Phoenix back up, you can be aggressive down mid lane, perhaps, but they're still quite a way behind. I don't think they'll do too much with it, but the fact is it has stalled the Food Fighters' advance to winning this set 2-0, and that's massive for them.
Absolutely. It's made it so, like, this enhanced Fire Giant is not supposed to win PGD the game at all sets. It's just not going to happen from this type of position. But what it does do is it allows you to have so much time to get this left Phoenix up. You can feel confident to step slightly out of the base to clear some waves, because it's going to be so hard for Food Fighters to take a clean engagement. All you have to do is avoid getting picked off and getting surrounded. Now, Starry Executi is still going to do what Lancelot does best, but it is on PG to play this defensively as well as they can, and reacting to the Lancelot by somewhat ignoring it's a good choice. But the left side Phoenix, the wave gets in, and that is enough for that to go down. Hold on, this Hunter's Mark. Oh my goodness! The masterful shot does enough, but Griff does enough in the right hand side of the map as well, takes down that final Phoenix. So despite the enhanced Fire Giant, hold on a second, Ptolemy has blinked in, big damage onto the Tiamat. Griff still alive. Food Fighters now are scrambling, they need to retreat. Nice use of the sprint there for Void Pain, but they're isolated from the rest of their team. Demon wants to back, Killjoy wants to step forward, Ptolemy giving chase as well. Nice teleport forward, but Ptolemy so low, and Zareth survives, stands and taunts, and is happy with that. The enhanced Fire Giant has not been paying off for PGD, but they are still in this game, Zats, but by the skin of their teeth.
I guess it's the unfortunate thing about defending a low health Phoenix against a Shibalonke. There's not really much you can do about it. The only way you can deal with it is actually step up a little bit further as a group. You know, they perhaps needed to recognise the fact that their Phoenix were still very much in danger, despite having that enhanced Fire Giant on their side. They needed to actually step up more and not give them the chance to get close to that Phoenix. That would have put them in a better spot, I think. But actually, I don't mind what PGD did after that. Starry getting very aggressive, kind of messing with them, doing half of Demon's health bar, who will heal it back up. Demon? Actually needs to be very careful. Gets the bees, but it's surely going to die.
No. Demon steps up forward, and Starry just shuts them down. That is the big win condition for PGD off the table. The enhanced Fire Giant as well has dropped away. Void Pain going to try to buy some time, but there are minion waves pouring in every lane. That's Griff being chased away by Ptolemy. Good damage out onto this jungler, but Ptolemy taking some damage of their own. Starry executing on this Lancelot has had such a good time this game. Still though, PGD hold the door, but they lose the mid Phoenix in the process. The backliners are here. The pressure is mounting on the Titan, committing forward. Our food fighters, they're going for the end. Some of them, Void Pain trying to create some space. The Titan is very low. Starry is holding it. Can Starry finish it or hold it for their team? Void Pain goes down. Starry does enough, holds the Titan exactly where the food fighters need it, and they kick the door down and take game number 2. Fantastic from the food fighters.
Brilliantly played. Really smart as well, and that's really interesting that it goes to show, even when you lose that enhanced fire giant, it actually doesn't matter because they recognize they still had a major lead everywhere, in terms of items, and 3K pots as well. They were at that stage of the game where they weren't concerned by Pittsburgh having that enhanced fire giant. They recognized that. They knew they were still in a really strong position. They kept those Phoenixes staggered and they kept them down. That Titan was never going to be able to heal. It was never going to be able to defend itself. And again, Starry doing a really good job of being an absolute nuisance for that backline. And then Tova Mesa came in, did a lot of damage. Zarzif, I think, actually looked really good on the Tiamat. The damage was really impressive, and there was some really nice plays on that Tiamat. Lots to like about what they did, and everyone played their part. Everyone did their job. But it was a good fight back from the Pittsburgh Gold Diggers. It has to be said, it was a lot closer to that game, and it felt like they, if game 1 had been a bit different, if they'd maybe got a bit closer there, they'd have maybe been able to get closer here, and in that situation, suddenly it could have been a more even game. It could have been an actual 3-game set potentially. But the fact is, even though they had more of a fight back, they never really looked like threatening. I don't think they ever reached the Phoenix once, did they? They never got that far. They were never at that stage of the game where they could do that. And again, much credit must go to the food fighters for that, because that's how they wanted to play. They took the game on their terms, and they thoroughly deserved to win that set.
I would like to give a special shout out to Demon on the Chiron in that game, still keeping up in damage with your opposing mid laner, who was, quite frankly, just on the winning team for most of that game. It's not an easy task to do, but still did do well. I actually also would like to give some commiserations, because I believe Demon actually lagged forward in that last fight. It didn't make sense for them to be stepping up the way they did, and a small second, just a lapse of whether it was poor judgment or just a unfortunate circumstance, shall we say. Yeah, NA Ping had fantastic consequences for food fighters, and that was as simple as it was. But at the end of the day, final week of the regular season, and food fighters look like a fantastically strong, neat, and well put together team.
And we saw some cracks today, and we saw some potential for how you can deal with them. I think if a team goes against them and does their homework, drafts properly, and I think focuses out those solo picks particularly, then I think Starry would have a much more difficult time. I think that's an important direction to look at, because it's hard to look at banning out Gato, Griff, and the rest of the lanes aren't so relevant. I think a team that does that is prepared for them and can come out and match them in terms of their draft, in terms of their play. Then yes, there's potential there, but certainly they look like a really, really strong team. Well done to them.
Well done to them, and well done for everyone who tuned in. I believe, and I will hopefully be corrected in a moment if I am wrong, but I believe we have another match on the way today, and hoping for it. And yes, the call is that we should be having another one, Zat. So luckily for everyone here, there will be more action on the way. But I've been Judas, joined by Zats today. This has been the Deep Sea Division, and it was a fantastic match to watch. Hopefully more action on the way. As always, shout outs to Raptor on the backside, providing all of the visuals. But get yourself a little bit of a snack break, maybe a toilet break, and be ready for the next bit of action, because there's always more quacking to watch. But that's it from us today, and we will see you guys sometime soon.